Hey everybody, welcome to Cycle News, and this is the first street bike road test of 2023. Ryan and the guys have been doing a pretty good job with the dirt bikes, but I think it's about time we got some street bikes back in there. So the first one that we've got for 2023 is the brand new Ducati Diavel V4. One of the most eagerly anticipated bikes of 2023, I gotta say. It's about time this bike finally got the V4 motor, because V4 came out in 2018 with the Panigale, then it got into the Multistrada, the V4S Multistrada. Later this year also the Multistrada Enduro V4. But yeah, now it's finally in the Diavel, and let me tell you, heck of a bike. We just got back from Abu Dhabi. We flew over to Abu Dhabi and rode at the Diavel V4 mountain road, which is basically like a very small version of Pikes Peak. 6 miles long, 60 corners, every kind of corner you could possibly imagine, positive camber the whole way, super fast long straights, hell of a place to ride a motorcycle. And the best part was that we had the cops at the bottom was shutting the road down for us, so we got to really wind this baby out. Okay, so as the name suggests, new V4. Right, what do you get? So this is the Grantourismo version of the motor. The Grantourismo came out in the Multistrada a couple of years ago. So what's different? So effectively, new intake. Pretty obvious when you see those massive intake scoops on the side of near the side of the headlight and the forks. New airbox, different cams, different cam timing, a shorter first gear as well. Now all designed to give initial, punch off the bottom. Not something that you're really that concerned about with the Multistrada, whereas with the Diavel, it's all about launching off, drag start style. And you also get that fantastic looking 4-barrel exhaust, which just looks awesome. It's one of the best looking exhausts on the market right now. Incidentally, they've actually developed a Spitfire exhaust, now modeled on the iconic British World War II bomber called the Spitfire. 4 long muffler with 4 exhaust ports hanging out. Bitchin'. Takes 24 pounds off and gives you an extra 11 horsepower. So in stock form, Ducati is claiming 168 horsepower and 93 pounds-feet of torque with the new motor, which is about 7% up on what you used to get in the old 1260. This is incidentally the 3rd generation of the base model. 2016, we got the X Diavel, so 4th if you really want to be pedantic about it. So one thing that Ducati was quite at pains to tell us during this launch, 37,000 miles valve servicing now. I mean, that's what, 1.5 times the circumference of the Earth before you're going to need to get your valves done. That, and it's mated to 9,000 miles for your engine oil as well. So obviously you're not going to go more than that. You need, if you got something as a toy as expensive as a Ducati Diavel V4, you can stay on top of your oil changes. But 37,000 miles, not bad for the valves. As for the chassis, you get the aluminium, depending on where you live in the world, monocoque chassis, mated to Marzocchi conventionally adjusted 50mm Marzocchi forks and a Marzocchi shock. Fully adjustable, of course, so no electronic Öhlins as yet. Maybe there might be a V4S Diavel in the future, we don't know. And also the brakes have been changed as well. So the previous Diavel had M4.32 monoblock Brembo calipers. They have now been upgraded to Stylema caliper, again, monoblock, 4-piston monoblock calipers. The actual chassis itself has come in for a fair few changes. So your handlebars are 20mm closer to you. You still get the mid-mounted controls as well, but much of the work has been focused around shedding weight. So Ducati is claiming a 29-pound reduction in overall mass compared to the old 1260. And the largest of this comes from the motor with 11 pounds removed, and then you get a further 10.4 pounds itself comes from the monocoque frame. 2 pounds comes from the wheels and 1.3 pounds comes from the discs. So a little bit of unsprung weight saved there, which is the best kind of weight you can save on a motorcycle. But as you would expect with the Diavel, it's still got that chunky 240 section rear tire. Now I remember when I first saw the Diavel back in the day, 2011, 2012, whenever it was, And I was like, there's no way that a bike is going to handle with a tire like that. And I've never been so wrong in my entire life. It's quite remarkable the trick that Ducati managed to pull with a tire that big and how fast you can ride that bike. Now, being a modern day Ducati, it's got all the electronics that you could possibly need, 6-axis IMU, and you get a 5-inch TFT display, and inside there you get the adjustment for the 4-stage traction and wheelie control, 3-stage cornering ABS, and you also get your power launcher as well, Ducati's up and down quick shifter and cruise control, but you do not get heated grips, unfortunately, which is a bit of a bummer considering this bike costs the best part of 27,000 bucks. Also, you don't get tire pressure monitoring sensors. All these things you can get in the aftermarket accessories catalog. And unfortunately, and this is, I think, is a bit of a bummer, the dash does come with the ability to do turn-by-turn navigation, but they won't give you that as a standard feature. You've got to pay 80 bucks, which for a bike costing this much money, would have liked just to them to throw that in for a little bit of fruit for the customer, because it's only 80 bucks. So anyway, I'm not the one who's in charge of the pricing, but I think they could have done a little bit better there. If you've ever ridden a Diavel V4, you know they're a bit of a dichotomy of the senses. You look at it and you think, that's not going to be fast, that's not going to do what I want around corners, it's going to be a boat of a thing. You couldn't be further wrong, to be honest. It's really remarkable how fast you can ride this thing. It's only got a 31.1 inch seat height as well, so you're really low to the ground. Mid-mounted controls, so you're in that kind of semi-cruiser, but not full cruiser stance. And I love the mid-mounted controls as well, because it means I don't slouch and I don't have this bloody curvature at the base of my back, which I just despise on cruisers. But you can ride this thing really, really quickly. I was following Ducati's legendary test and development rider Alessandro Vaglia up the hill there a couple of times. And I was like, man, this is ridiculous how fast we're riding these things. It's crazy. But back on we'll start with the engine. Now, Ducati is calling this engine, this V4 Grantourismo motor, or V4 motor, I guess you could say, because it all kind of stems from the same area. Ducati's calling this the 360-degree motor, which means it can do superbikes, it can do enduroing, like touring, multi-strider-ing, now doing Diavel-ing. Now, before I really sent it up that mountain, I did do the responsible thing and go through all the various modes. So you got sport, touring, urban, and wet mode. And you have 2 power modes, one at 168 horsepower and one at 115 horsepower. Now, the 115 horsepower feels very anemic when you consider the difference between that and 168 horsepower. But between the urban and the touring modes, you get a slightly softer throttle response compared to the full-blown sport mode, where you get as close to 1-to-1 as you can get. It's never quite 1-to-1. There's still a little bit of electronic intervention in there. But when you get into sport mode and you really give it some, like, whew, she takes off. It's really, really good. And then you can sort of play with your various wheelie controls and your traction control levels and kind of find the feeling that suits you, because they're having such a big old rear tire on the back. They're not that easy to sort of break traction and get out. But when it goes, it really leaps, because you have effectively twice the amount of tread on the back tire than you would on a regular sport bike tire. Like, it just bang, it just fires out of a corner. And when you throw it into sport mode, it's incredibly deceptive at how fast the thing is. I think taking it back into touring mode and just having that slightly nicer, smoother throttle response, that for me was where I really enjoyed it. I seem to be doing this a lot with my reviews. I always tend to go back into the slightly less full-blown mode. Maybe I'm just getting too old, I don't know. But yeah, once I put it in touring mode, really, really enjoyable at that point. You match that fantastic quick shifter, the up and down Ducati quick shifter, one of the best in the market, and has been for a very, very long time as well. Chassis-wise, standard suspension is a little soft for my liking. So towards the end of the day, jack preload front and rear up a fair bit, just to make the chassis a little bit more taut, and I really enjoyed it at that point. I mean, if you're just cruising around and doing little easy riding, then you'll be fine. And before I go on, I've got to admit, like, we only ever rode this thing on the Diavel V4 road. We didn't do any traffic riding, so I don't know how hot it gets. Basically none of the usual riding you guys are going to do. Got to be honest, that's what Ducati offered us, that's what we did. So hence the reason why we tried to do a couple of slow runs and just explore the bike for what it was. But it is really quite remarkable how fluid the thing is for such a big rear tire. It holds a line like nothing. Like, you just put it on its side and it'll stay there all day. Like, it's never going to be, it's a little bit sluggish in that, but you've got to 240 section rear tire at the back. So you always got to bear that in mind. When you really start to scratch, you will hit the limits of the ground clearance a bit. Pretty soon we were scraping pegs most corners, but that's fair enough. But yeah, overall the electronics are really nicely mapped to the bike. The throttle response is very good. It brakes like nothing else. Like those stylemas just whoosh, it just stops. For a 520 pound bike with a full tank of fuel, stops pretty damn well, gotta say. But yeah, it's a really, really nicely designed motorcycle. It's not terribly different to what the original ethos of the Diavel was in the first place. It's just jacked right up now. Like you really turn these things up to 11, and it's got really cool little design accents. Like that seat's really lovely. The foldable foot pegs for the passenger, which has always been a Ducati Diavel feature. The handlebar now is a two-piecer. It's actually clip-ons. You got your handlebar bracket in the center. You got two-piece bar that comes in and joins. So there's that too. Switches are really nicely laid out, like LED lights front and rear. The rear LED light is just magic. It's the best looking light, like big old LED at the back, looks super cool. So yeah, it's a great bike. I'm going to turn more than a few heads, I think, this bike. Diavel V4, it's the next generation of Diavel. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. Go and check them out when you can. They're really, really sweet.